All right, so it's been a while since I've recorded last. Life happens, and so I didn't have as much time to do that as I was hoping. But today I figured I would give kind of a walkthrough on the various vehicles that we have currently. Also today we have Emily and Alex helping out. So first, I'm going to take a look over here at Pumpkin. So Pumpkin is my 1974 Jeep CJ5 that I bought, or that I traded my 1970 FJ44. When I traded it, I knew that it was kind of a rust heap and wasn't in that great a shape, but as you can see, there's all sorts of issues with it. The key with it though is that the frame is clean, and when I got the FJ40, I originally wanted to kind of restore it and be able to wheel it. Then I realized honestly that an FJ40 wasn't the greatest candidate for that. I operate on a fairly tight budget, and Land Cruiser parts are not cheap. Whereas CJ5 parts are plentiful, easy to find, and relatively affordable. As you can see, I've kind of got it stripped down. I had originally started on a Holley Sniper EFI install, which went well. The biggest issue is once I got it fired up, I realized it's got a pretty bad engine knock, and I'm going to have to replace the engine. I'm still kind of debating on what I'm going to do with that. Still not sure. I'm leaning towards a V8 or potentially a diesel swap. We'll see what I can find on the cheap, because besides my budget, I kind of like the idea of having this as my cheap just trail romper, and so doing things as cheaply as possible is kind of what I'm leaning towards. There's Emily. She's showing you the terrible tires that it's got and the washer that she put on the valve stem. Keep that out of your mouth. We don't want to eat that. That's not yummy. I've torn the seats out, tore the dash out. Wiring is an absolute mess, as it is with pretty much every Jeep that you'll ever see or buy used. That's just, I don't know why it's like that, but it seems like Jeeps in general attract the worst quality of electricians out there, I guess. So I got a painless performance wiring harness to replace that. That'll work for whatever engine I end up putting in this, thankfully. The tub is rusty. It's had a lot of patches. There's a ton of Bondo. You can see it just smeared over this kind of stuff here. But all in all, it's fairly solid, and I think it'll be a fun project to get running and driving. As you can see, I've got all the parts over here: roll bar, front bumper. It actually has a full hard top, which is in pieces currently, but it's all solid and good to go. Look at the hood, the front windshield. There's the dashboard, all that fun stuff. So at some point, I'm going to be able to put this back together and get it working. Over here we have our second newest addition to the house, which is my wife's 2000 Toyota Land Cruiser. It's a UZJ 100. It's, other than the wheels and tires, it's completely stock. Runs and drives great. It's got about 200,000 miles on it, which is kind of high, but not terribly for these, especially since the timing belt was recently redone. So it's going to be a good driver for her. And then over here, obviously, we've got Lemon Lime, which I think I've done a walkthrough on it before. It's been sitting for a while. It's not, the weather's not been the best for driving it, so I parked it over here where it can just kind of sit and be somewhat covered by the tree. Yeah, so it still runs and drives great. Every time I've had to start it up, it just goes, no issues. So as always, I'm happy with Lemon Lime. And over here we have the 1988 FJ62 Land Cruiser, which I'm going to save for last on the actual walkthrough. And then we have the tan Ford Bronco. It's a 1986. So I picked this up in Idaho. Honestly, it was kind of an impulse buy. I've wanted a V8 Bronco for a long time, and ended up getting this kind of on a whim. So it runs and drives pretty well. It's had a starter issue that's kind of thrown me for a loop a couple times. You guys stay out of the road. Nope, don't go past the concrete. So it runs and drives pretty well. The interior is actually in pretty decent shape, other than the dash cracking and the instrument panel cracking there. Other than that, it's in good shape. The biggest issue I have with it is it has a cold start and idle issue, which I have narrowed down to being caused by the carburetor not being tuned correctly. So it's tuned for about 5,000 feet of elevation, which figures considering it was in Idaho, but and I have not yet tuned it for the almost sea level that we're at currently. So as you can see, it's got a pretty big exhaust on it. It sounds really good, runs good. It's got the 351 Windsor V8 in it, and the hardy but slow C6 automatic transmission, which works well, but it doesn't do much for helping keep the or for helping it go fast. So you can see it's the engine's in decent shape all in all. This one has its own wiring issues too, which figures, but it runs good, drives good, and that's really about all I care for it. At some point, I'm honestly considering selling this because it's just one more vehicle than what I need, but we'll see what happens when it comes to that. Oh, that didn't quite close. All right, there we go. So over here though, we have the newest addition to the family, which is our 1988 Toyota Land Cruiser FJ62. Alex has called it Blueberry, and I think that fits. I bought this about a week ago. I've been looking to get a 60 series Land Cruiser for a long time that actually runs and drives well as has a good working frame, or a good frame, which, as many of you might know, the 60 series Land Cruiser is not easy to find with those, and it took me a lot of time and honestly a lot of money to finally get one. So the interior in this is in great shape, other than, again, classic 80s dash caps falling apart. I actually replaced the radio myself. It came with a stock radio, which the AM/FM function worked, but I couldn't get the cassette deck to work, and so it wasn't really worth trying to keep it in for me. Four-wheel drive works great. That automatic transmission it works as designed. Unfortunately, Toyota did a garbage job with that transmission. I've had it in this and in my 1990, I think it was 91 Land Cruiser, and I hated it in that. It's garbage transmission. It's going to go away. That's actually the next big thing that's happening for any of my vehicles is I'm putting an H55F manual transmission. So it's a 5-speed manual transmission into this Land Cruiser. So yeah, it runs great. It drives great. Really the only complaint I have is that automatic transmission, which, as many of you know, it's kind of garbage for all of them. I've got my spare wheel here, which at some point that tire that's up on the front porch next to the kiddos will go onto it. Has a little bit of rust here and there, so things like this, but honestly, it's not nearly as bad as any of the Land Cruisers that I've had. Just little things like right here, which they actually sell metal that goes from here all the way back like that, and it's cheap replacement panels. And then The engine is in great shape. Admittedly, it does have a lot of miles on it, which unfortunately is not uncommon for these vehicles, but so you can see overall it's in good shape. Engine bay is nice and clean. I picked this up actually from another YouTuber. Definitely go and check his channel out. It's called Mize Adventure, M-I-Z-E. I'll put a link in the description. And he actually, he completely redid this vehicle on his channel, so feel free to watch it if you want, because that was a big part for me as well, as knowing what had been done and what condition it was in before I bought it, and being able to watch it happen on the channel. So but yeah, so that's what we have for vehicles right now. I'm considering very strongly kind of switching gears, so to speak, on the channel, and kind of moving away from just straight working on the vehicles, which I've done a lot of, and hopefully actually getting out and wheeling more. The FJ62 is going to be a good vehicle to do that in, but I honestly want to get the big old Bronco out, which we call Tannerite. I want to get that out on the trails at least one time before I sell it. So we'll see, and who knows, that might convince me to keep it. But also, as many of you probably have already noticed, I have a bit of a problem when it comes to buying and selling vehicles. I've had a lot of them in the last couple of years. I'll do a count and see exactly how many I've had when I go back through and edit this. But I'm considering pretty strongly doing something along the lines of, I buy junk 4x4s, get them running and driving, wheel them, and then sell them, as kind of the theme for the channel. Basically, I guess, channeling my my addiction rather than just letting it run rampant like I have been. I think that might actually help give me a little bit of focus and maybe help me keep vehicles a little longer than I have been. So let me know in the comments what you think, and I guess your opinions on things like whether I should sell the Bronco or whether I should do what I just proposed, where I go out, buy junk 4x4s, fix them up a little bit, wheel them, and then sell them.